Tuesday, the 15th of July, 1806. At 2 p.m. struck the Roche Jaune, below where it passes out of the Rocky Mountains. River 120 yards wide, bold, rapid, and deep. The Roche passes out of a high, rugged mountain covered with snow. The mountains have some scattering pine on them, and on the spurs and hillsides there is some scrubby pine. I can see no timber sufficient large for a canoe which will carry more than 3 men, and such a one would be too small to answer my purpose. In the evening, after the usual delay of 3 hours to give the horses time to feed and rest, and allowing ourselves time also to cook and eat dinner, I proceeded on down the river on an old buffalo road. Friday, 18th July, 1806. Crossed a small, muddy brook on which I found great quantities of purple, yellow, and black currants, ripe. They were of an excellent flavor. I think the purple superior to any I have ever tasted. The river here is about 200 yards wide, rapid as usual, and the water gliding over coarse gravel and round stones of various sizes. The bottoms of the river are narrow. I proceeded down the river through a beautiful bottom, passing an Indian fort on the head of a small island, and encamped on a small island separated from the larboard shore by a very narrow channel. Gibson, in attempting to mount his horse after shooting a deer this evening, fell, and on a snag, and sent it nearly 2 inches into the muscular part of his thigh. He informs me this snag was about 1 inch in diameter, burnt at the end. This is a very bad wound, and pains him exceedingly. I dressed the wound. Sunday, 20th of July, 1806. Sent 2 men in search of wood suitable for axe handles. They found some chokecherry, which is the best wood that can be procured in this country. I determined to have 2 canoes made out of the largest trees, and lash them together, which will cause them to be sturdy and fully sufficient to take my small party and self, with what little baggage we have, down the river. Had handles put in the 3 axes, and after sharpening them with a file, fell the 2 trees which I intended for the 2 canoes. Those trees appeared tolerably sound, and will make canoes of 28 feet in length, and about 16 or 18 inches deep, and from 16 to 24 inches wide. The men with the 3 axes set in and worked until dark. Gibson's wound looks very well. Monday, the 21st of July, 1806. The men work very diligently in the canoes, one of them nearly finished, ready to put in the water. Gibson's wound is beginning to heal. Wednesday, the 23rd of July, 1806. The men finished both canoes by 12 o'clock today, and I sent them to make oars and get poles. In the evening had the 2 canoes put into the water and lashed together, oars and everything ready, fixed to set out early in the morning. Friday, 25th July, 1806. I proceeded on, and at 4 p.m. arrived at a remarkable rock, situated in an extensive bottom on the starboard side of the river, and 250 paces from it. This rock, which I shall call Pompey's Tower, is 200 feet high and 400 paces in circumference, and only accessible on one side, which is from the northeast, the other parts of it being a perpendicular cliff of lightish-colored gritty rock. On the top there is tolerable soil of about 5 or 6 feet thick, covered with short grass. The Indians have made 2 piles of stone on the top of this tower. The natives have engraved on the face of this rock the figures of animals, etc., near which I marked my name, and the day of the month and year. From the top of this tower I could discover 2 low mountains. The plains to the south rise from the distance of about 6 miles. On the northerly side of the river, high, romantic cliffs approach and jut out over the water for some distance both above and below. After satisfying myself sufficiently in this delightful prospect of the extensive country around, and the immense herds of buffalo, elk, and wolves in which it abounded, I descended and proceeded on a few miles. Saturday, 26th July, 1806. Set out this evening very early. Proceeded on, and late in the evening passed a part of the river which was rock. Fortunately for us, we found an excellent channel to pass down on the right of a stony island. Half a mile below this bad place, we arrived at the entrance of Bighorn River on the starboard side. Here I landed, immediately in the point, which is a soft mud mixed with the sand. I walked up the Bighorn 1/2 a mile, and crossed over to the lower side, and formed a camp on a high point. I, with one of my men, Labiche, walked up the northeast side of Bighorn River 7 miles, to the entrance of a creek which falls in on the northeast side and is 28 yards wide, some running water, which is very muddy. This river is said to be navigable a long way, and water a fine, rich, open country. I returned to camp a little after dark. Finding myself fatigued, went to bed without my supper. Tuesday, 29th July, 1806. Late in the evening, I arrived at the entrance of a river which I take to be called by the Indians the Lazeka or Tongue River. It discharges itself on the starboard side and is 150 yards wide of water. The current rapid, and the channel contains great numbers of snags. I believe that the country back through which this river passes is an open one, where the water is exposed to the sun, which heats it in its passage. It is shallow and throws out great quantities of mud and some coarse gravel. Friday, 30th July, 1806. Set out early this morning. I proceeded on at 7 miles past the entrance of a river, the water of which is 100 yards wide. This river is shallow and the water very muddy, and the color of the banks a darkish brown. I observed great quantities of red stone thrown out of this river, that from the appearance of the hills at a distance on its lower side induced me to call this Redstone River. By a coincidence, I found the Indian name Wahasa. As the water was disagreeably muddy, I could not camp on that side below its mouth. However, I landed at its entrance, crossed the river, and encamped at the entrance of a brook under a large spreading cotton tree. In the evening, below the entrance of Redstone River, I observed great numbers of buffalo feeding on the plains, elk on the points, and antelopes. I also saw some of the bighorn animals at a distance on the hills. Gibson is now able to walk. He walked out this evening. Saturday, 31st of July, 1806. Set out as usual about sunrise. Here the river approaches the high mountainous country on the northwest side. Those hills appear to be composed of various colored earth, washed into curious formed mounds and hills, and cut much with ravines. I landed in the entrance of a small river on the starboard side, 40 yards wide, shallow and muddy. It has lately been very high. The high country is entirely bare of timber. Great quantities of coal or carbonized wood is to be seen in every bluff and in the high hills at a distance on each side. The country, like that of yesterday, is open, extensive plains. As I was about landing this evening, saw a white bear, and the largest I ever saw, eating a dead buffalo on a sandbar. Sunday, 1st of August, 1806. We set out early as usual. The wind was high and ahead, which caused the water to be a little rough and delayed us very much. Added to this, we had showers of rain repeatedly all day at the intermission of only a few minutes between them. My situation a very disagreeable one, in an open canoe, wet, and without a possibility of keeping myself dry. The country through which we passed is in every respect like that through which I passed yesterday. The brooks have all some water in them from the rain which has fallen. This water is excessively muddy. The river has more sandbars today than usual, and more soft mud, the current less rapid. At 2 p.m. I was obliged to land to let the buffalo cross over, notwithstanding an island of half a mile in width over which this gang of buffalo had to pass. This gang of buffalo was entirely across and as thick as they could swim for half an hour. Encamped on an island close to the larboard shore. 2 gangs of buffalo crossed a little below us, as numerous as the first. Monday, August 2nd, 1806. Mosquitoes very troublesome this morning. I set out early, river wide and very much divided by islands and sand and mud bars. The bottoms more extensive and contain more timber such as cottonwood, willow, etc. The country extends level for great extent. Some high rugged hills in the forepart of this day on the southeast side, on which I saw the bighorns but could not get near them. Saw immense numbers of elk, buffalo, and wolves today. The wolves do catch the elk. About 8 a.m. this morning, a bear of the large, vicious species, being on a sandbar, raised himself up on his hind feet and looked at us as we passed, down near the middle of the river. He plunged into the water and swam towards us. In the evening I saw a very large bear take the water above us. We were very near being detained by the buffalo today which were crossing the river. We got through the line between 2 gangs. Encamped in a high bottom covered with low ash and elm. The mosquitoes excessively troublesome. Tuesday, August 3rd, 1806. Last night the mosquitoes was so troublesome that no one of the party slept half the night. For my part, I did not sleep 1 hour. Those tormenting insects found their way into my bear and tormented me the whole night. At 2 miles, past the entrance of Joseph Field's Creek, 35 yards wide, which is falling into the river very fast. The mosquitoes were so numerous that I could not shoot with any certainty. At 8 a.m. I arrived at the junction of the Roche Jaune with the Missouri. At landing, I observed several elk feeding on the young willows. Formed my camp immediately in the point between the 2 rivers, at which place the party had all encamped the 26th of April, 1805.